This is Into the Deep with Catherine Just, a podcast devoted to the evolution of consciousness, connection, and inspired creative expression.
Hi, everybody. It's another episode of Into the Deep with Catherine Just. And today I'm so excited to have Gordon Studer here, who is such an inspiration to me. I'm just really honored to have Gordon with us today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I mean, we've talked briefly. I feel like I've known you for a long time.
I know. I love that. And we have a mutual friend who thought that would be the case.
Yes.
Who's been talking about you for a long time. Like every time we talk, she'd say, "You need to meet Gordon." And so,
and likewise, right?
I love
and I'm
that.
like, why? Why do I have to meet you? And now I know why. Now I know why.
I think we had a 30-minute conversation, and it was obvious that we were of like minds and of a similar pod. So it's been really just fantastic to get to know you on a deeper level, and I look forward to introducing you to those that haven't met you yet or haven't seen your work yet, and getting into the deep with you, because it's not just about the making of the work. It's really about your philosophy of creating and of living. And I'm really interested. You helped me so much in our first conversation. I was taking notes. So I'm really excited to dive back into how your brain works.
Uh-oh. I'm not sure you want to know that, but
here we go. Well, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and just telling us a little bit about you, where you live, what you do, all of the things that maybe are already on your bio, if you'd like to share that with us.
I mean, there's always a long version and then a shorter version, but basically I'm kind of new to this as a career as a fine artist. I've been in the commercial world thinking that I was living my dream or my destiny and realizing I had been almost a shadow career, and that the fine art all along has been what I've been wanting to do. You end up sometimes being like as low as you can be, personal things happening, financial things. And when you're at that bottom, you start to realize what's important. And so there was a logical way to dig my way out of all of this at a later age in my life too, and having a very successful career, but then having it sort of fail at the end. The easy way would be kind of revamp myself in that image of this commercial world. I would have had to work very, very hard. And then I thought, well, if I'm going to have to work so hard, no matter what I do, why don't I just do what I love? And so I think I slowly started to make that decision, but because I always thought fine art meant that financial success wouldn't follow quite as easily and it would be harder, it was a leap to go there. And so I think I started to slowly work my way towards that. And then I'm sure a lot of people have had this experience where things just start happening, good and bad, but because a lot of bad stuff had happened, and suddenly all these good things started happening. And I'm kind of like, what's going on? Like, why am I having such good fortune? And the pandemic really helped me, because in this time when I was trying to make a transition, I got stuck in LA and had a studio, and I was just starting to paint. I haven't sold one painting yet, but I painted every single day. And that's when everything started to happen.
Wow.
And we talked a bit about it. I suddenly realized the importance of being that creative conduit that flows when, you keep hearing that term, flow, you're in a flow state. But really, to make the work, we know what that's like. And then, some days you're going in and you're cleaning brushes and stuff. It's like, it doesn't always come, but you put yourself in a position daily to have that happen. And when it happens, good work follows. You're taking chances. But then what I didn't get was your life opens up, your heart opens, and everything just comes naturally. And so I've just been trying to stay in a place that I'm an open conduit when I'm working and when I'm living. And that doesn't mean always good things happen. Like, I get it that some forces you have to go through hardship. I get it now. And so I go through that too. And it's just like the universe is sending me this to learn something. And I know it sounds a little spiritual, and I always saw people that were like, let's manifest, let do it. And I go, shit, yeah, I want to manifest too. Suddenly I started to believe that I was in sync, and the art was the thing that was bringing me to this state. And it's just been a roller coaster ride. Like 4 years ago, I hadn't sold a painting. I now have more financial success than I ever dreamed.
That's incredible.
First of all, there's money in fine art, everybody. It's there. But it's a hard work, and it's commitment, and being unique to who you are, not trying to copy something you think that will sell. So that's where I am right now. Like, I'm in the midst of all these things happening, and I'm growing more and taking chances and painting, but like we had talked about, not painting as much. And suddenly my life's getting a little like, it's not quite gelling quite as well. And I realized I haven't really been painting in the studio because I've been pulled aside by all the business commitments.
Right.
And so I need to get back to it, because that's where it all is. And then there's my whole life that got me to that place, which is, is a whole nother story. And my parents and influence, realizing that some of the things that you were influenced by as a very, very young kid really take hold for your whole life, and sometimes don't reappear until you're on Medicare. like sometimes it takes that long. And I just feel like this is my time. It's near the end of my life, but it's like, this is my time. It's the most exciting time of my life. And I'm like an old geezer. Almost.
Not really. You're very vibrant. I love hearing that you just got started, basically, and you just dove in and you were painting every single day. And what happened was you were being truthful and honest with what you wanted to be doing. And as a result, the world said, okay, and started opening up. And it wasn't, what I like too, what you said too, was that it wasn't all like the sky parted and everything was perfect.
Yeah.
Life has been lifey, and you have an understanding that those trying times are important too. Like, they're necessary for you to get to the next step, which I believe too. It's like a contraction before another expansion. Like, you have to Absolutely. Go through that difficulty to get to whatever it is that's coming. You have to make space for it. And
you never know where it's coming from. It never comes from where you think.
Right.
So you can't control, like, oh, I want this to happen. It like ends up, oh, you asked for that, we're going to give it to you this way. And you're like, wait a minute, that's not the way I thought it would come.
Right.
So you have to kind of you really have to have your feelers up, because I think we have such a tendency, and I'm starting to do that as business gets bigger, to try to go back to controlling things, because I'm kind of a control guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't work. Like, I'm really seeing it. So it's like a behavior that I'm starting to think of myself in a new way, which is revolutionary for me, to realize it doesn't work nearly as well as opening and then really having your feelers out for something that could be happening or something that's there. And that means good, bad too, because I realize when you go ahead and accept that and don't try to deny it, and it happens in your life, it just gives me confirmation that my feelers are still up and working. Right.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day too, about manifesting, and how it isn't necessarily about doing the manifesting steps correctly. It's more of an internal knowing. Like, you shift. I have that feeling too, of like trying and then the not try. Like, we're not trying, we're just like stepping into it.
Right.
And then my experience is, it's like the movie The Matrix, where you're seeing with the new lens. You're seeing everything as potential. And like every person that you come in contact with was brought to you for a reason. Like then everything becomes like a movie, so to speak, but you're more available to have connections that maybe I wouldn't have had I not opened. Like you were just saying, like being open to what is coming from all different directions, not just I get stuck in I'm teaching a class, I need X many people to sign up because I need this much money, and like I get very, like you said, I get very into controlling the outcome and thinking it's only available to me in this particular way when money comes from everywhere, number one, and I'm not in the game of trying to figure it out. And when I'm trying to figure it out, I'm missing it. I'm missing it completely.
Yeah, me too. And that just leads to trouble. I mean,
Yeah.
And fear.
Trouble.
Actually, you think you're in more control, but actually more fear is involved.
Right.
So, yeah. But, you know, we have our natures. We're talking about that too. It's good to know who you are. Like, I know I'm a control guy. Like, I like to control things. I like to not take chances. I like to control my environment. But I've interjected new parts of my personality, which takes some chances, that isn't controlling. And I do this in my artwork where I set up certain exercises to trick myself because I know what I'm like. And just integrating that little bit is a great combination. The control, there's nothing wrong with that. Control serves us, especially if there's certain parts of us, that's how we're made up. We don't want to deny that controlling. But if you can integrate a little of the opposite side of stuff like that, that's when the whole thing starts to kind of work together.
Right. That's interesting. You mentioned that a little bit about your exercises that you do, and I think you bring them into your workshops as well.
Right.
I'm wondering.
And I know that sometimes I feel like I'm teaching my exercise because I'm a control guy, that it's a way of loosening up. So I have to really kind of see where some people don't have that issue.
Sure.
They actually need some control. Like they're just all loose, but they can't finish a painting.
Yeah,
like
I relate to that.
Finish it.
Yeah.
And so if they can just do a little bit of control with their freeness, it just helps support. It's like being a little bit more of a full person, a fuller artist.
Right.
It's so painting in life. It's hand in hand. Almost immediately, I find that if I change my behavior, if I do something in my outside world, it changes my artwork. If I do something in my artwork, it changes my outside world.
Interesting.
They're completely, you hear these things all the time.
Yeah.
And hear people talk about manifestation. But guess what? There's no answer. People like Tony Robbins will tell you what you're supposed to do, but it's a personal journey. You've got to have that personal experience until you believe that. Not so much you believe, it's almost like you're like, oh, that's what it is. And it's like religion. Like you can go to church all the time until you have a personal experience with some religious philosophy. Then it takes hold.
Right.
So that, and then with people's work and workshops, I tell you, you're kind of, we're going to be here and paint, you can focus, but you're kind of on your own. Like, I can't tell you how you're going to get from here to here. Like, that's your journey. Good luck.
Good luck. I'll see you on the other side, hopefully.
Right. If you make it.
I love that. You give people the freedom to find their own way and not try to get them to paint like you because it works for you. So it must work for them. Like,
I think I did that at first, but then I started to get it. Actually, it's been so great meeting so many different people, like all different kinds that come from, different points of view in life and art. And it's been so interesting. And also makes me just like people more, and be more interested in people, because it's not just like one dimensional, just like they're not like a bunch of me's.
Right.
They like have all these other things. And it's really fun to watch someone have like a breakthrough in art and actually cry sometimes, because the art breakthrough is a life breakthrough in some ways sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's super rewarding and it's super interesting. I didn't think I'd like teaching quite as much as I do.
How long have you been teaching now?
Well, when then like 3 years ago, I made the leap I took on a studio that was like 10 times bigger than what I could afford. And I was so scared stiff that I just thought I better do some other kind of thing to make money along with trying to sell paintings. And so I started to have some workshops in this huge studio I couldn't afford. That was the motivation. And it went well. And then suddenly I realized it was more than that. And now things have stabilized financially. So it completes my art world a little bit.
Mhm.
But like I said, I'm being pulled a little bit away from my artwork because you get busy doing those things.
Right. And we were talking at the beginning before I hit record about what's happening in life, just to get ourselves like connected
Right.
and you were mentioning that again. And that was one thing that was so important when we talked the first time. And I took notes because I needed to hear you say what you did about your philosophy of the answer, trying to get to the answer about anything in life. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your belief around what happens when you're feeling foggy and you can't make a decision and you're not sure what to do next. Because I know that we're both struggling in some ways with that in the
Right.
moment now. I'm curious what would you tell someone that's in that space? What is it that you do that helps you?
Well, I mean, I don't know because I'm in that right now, but yeah, I have some opportunities. I mean, also when things start to flow along, sometimes lots of opportunities come. You can't take all the opportunities, even though I'm a yes guy. And so I sometimes have a tendency to say yes, yes, yes. So I have a big one right now that I'm not sure what the decision is. You know, because I'm not at that point that I figured out, it's about trying to keep, like we were talking about, myself as open as possible, because there will be a moment when almost like a feeling will come over me and I know the answer.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of doing a little bit of a waiting game right now, talking to people who I respect. I mean, I'm even being kind of selfish about this podcast because I was hoping, like, I've listened to your podcast. I'm like, maybe this will kind of help me.
Yeah.
um, yeah. So I'm kind of waiting and making sure if I'm open, and then I know I'll see what it is, what the answer is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if it looks too good to turn down, like, yeah, I'm just waiting right now.
Yeah.
And I probably should paint, really. Like I should paint. So I'll probably try to do that later today quickly because I have to make this decision in the next couple of days. But I
The
know that
answer.
will just clear my mind. And there's
Yeah.
confidence because I don't know about you, but I still have a little bit of a paranoid, like I'm only as good as my next painting and it could all end tomorrow.
Yeah.
And everyone just keeps telling me, quit thinking that way. But that's the kind of animal I am. I worry about those things. It's also interesting. I was thinking about how when you have a bunch of people around you that believe in you almost more than you do, but it's reinforced constantly, you start to think maybe there's something to
Yeah.
that. So I get a lot of reinforcement, like, I don't know what you're worried about. Just
Yeah.
keep going.
That's fantastic. And Catherine, I think our mutual friend is one of them.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely.
And she
Yeah.
came to me too. She's been taking my classes for a long time and she said to me, Catherine,
Right.
you're amazing. And I thought, thank you. And she just like volunteered to help me in the places that I can't see. Like I can't see what I can't see.
Right.
And it's easy for her.
Right. Or someone can hear you and tell you what you just said to them.
Yes. Exactly. And I love having that reflected back to me of somebody that's been around me for years.
Right.
Really. And like you said, just being around somebody. And I had that experience too when I did my first big photo shoot with somebody that I looked up to the point where when she said yes, I cried. And I walked into this photo studio to do the shoot with her. And it was for my own project. I asked her to be involved in something I wanted to do, and she'd be the first person to do it. And she saw me here. So I literally had to rise up to meet her where she felt I was. And we ended up, I'd never had that experience before of having somebody believe in me more than I did and just like was referring to me as an artist. And we ended up working together for years. And it was always like she would come in and we would huddle and say, let's make art. Like there was no agenda except to be present in the moment and really create collaboratively. And I haven't had an experience like it since then. And I can tell the difference, right? We can tell the difference when somebody really makes you rise up to meet them where they see you. It's an incredible feeling.
And when you find the part inside of you that actually is that thing, even if you're
Yeah.
kind of faking it at the beginning and you're like, wait a minute, these words are coming out of my mouth. I'm talking, I'm doing these things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you start to even like, I felt like I'm playing a role a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
An archetype or something of like a teacher. That's weird when you're teaching and people
Oh,
are
yeah.
looking at you. Like,
I know.
why are they listening to me?
And also like imposter syndrome, like they're going to find me out. Like I really don't know what I'm talking about.
But so that's, I think just to have like that experience you had, that's like invaluable, right?
Yeah, I can't.
Because that
say
just,
no.
you just got to go from here to here and realize I can hold that.
Yeah.
And maybe not then you got to do it again. But if you also, that's why it's great to surround yourself with people you admire. And it's always good to look at other people that you might think you would like aspire to maybe even grow in that direction.
Yeah.
And then to realize that they feel like you're on the same level. Like that's
Yes.
like, it's
I
such an
know.
honor. And you're like, what?
Exactly. I had that experience with the Toltec practice too when I was apprenticed with other teachers, and people were telling me, people that were above me in the in the lineage of Miguel Ruiz were saying, you are XYZ as far as like where you are, how much you see,
Right.
like telling me. And I was like, I can't ever say that. I don't want to get in trouble. I was afraid I was going to get in trouble. So I like went to my teachers and I said, I want to say that I am that, but I don't know if I'll get in trouble. They laughed at me. They're like, you're just like us. I'm like, I'm
Right.
so used to the narrative that I tell myself that I'm here and everybody else is here and I'm not enough yet, or maybe I never will be, or I'm looking up to. And I think
yeah.
I
I
just
think
think that's
it does
interesting.
there is something that's nice about the humbleness of, but you're a person that's a sharer too. Like you're sharing because I don't even know why, but you can share your vulnerability because in a way we doubt ourselves sometimes, and that can be humbling in a good way.
Yeah.
Because I could get you to admit that you're awesome and
Are you sure?
talented, but but it might be hard a little bit. But yeah, I like that. And also that because you need to be thinking on your feet all the time.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't be this agenda that this is the way things are. And so, and also you've met people like that where you realize they're not going to change their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like to feel like I can listen and I can start to change my mind about things and maybe even go back on something that I said, or like having that open mind about things.
Isn't that fascinating though? Like now that we are of a certain age, if you want to call it that,
Right.
just the awareness that comes now, that's kind of like, you've got to be kidding. I just figured this out. And what an amazing thing to have an awareness come that sort of shifts your whole world view in an
But I think that
instant.
there's that life experience. I think everybody has a different pace. There's no way I could be doing any of this in my 30s, even my 40s. Like I wasn't there yet. Like now I just feel like I've seen so many situations and people, like it's easier to navigate. And then all the we talked about how in the 90s, I was like, I did a lot of the est and stuff, all the personal
Yes.
growth stuff. I mean, I got a lot out of it, but it's like, I was thinking about they give you the handouts and all the exercises and all the stuff. It's like wrapping my head around it all. And now I realize how simple it all is.
Mm.
But naturally, I've come to that. It could only have happened now. And of course, we would like to be younger and have it all be happening, but there's no way this could have happened earlier in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, because it might not have panned out. Like the timing's absolutely perfect. I mean, I
love
remember
that.
the people that when things were going really bad, they were like, this is just going to make you stronger. And I'm like, I'm going to hit you in the head if you say that one more time. Like, shut up.
I do the same thing when people are like,
It
you've
pisses
been
me
here
off.
before.
But
Yeah, I get
now
pissed.
where I am, I realize all those things led to
You being the strong person that you are today, right?
yeah. But
You know what? I was looking at your feed today and I actually used one of your posts to share about our podcast episode today. And you were talking about how you had this beautiful, I think you call it an underlayer.
it's right there.
There it is.
Yeah.
You were talking about this painting and how you really like this underlayer. And now the next step is to cover it up.
Well, I had all this. It's a painting that's been unsuccessful for a long time, just been hanging around. And then I had an idea of something to do. And so I wanted to develop some of the underpainting a little bit more, but I kept going at it. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I kind of like that. But I'm going to follow through. I'm going to do this. There's something I have planned. I'm not going to cover it up. Things are going to be coming through, but I have a plan to change everything about it. And so that's coming. But now what's so funny is somebody on Instagram reached out and was interested in buying it.
Just the way it is. You're like, what do you think about that? Could it be done?
Well, I mean, I said, you know, I usually take a sale when I can get a sale.
Yeah,
It's just the business part of it all.
sure.
But I mean, I said, you need to decide quickly, because probably within the next 2 or 3 days, I'm going to be moving forward with it. But then what was ironic is she had approached me like 3 months ago about another painting, and that's actually the direction I'm going to go with this.
Interesting.
So she might even say, let's see what happens then. And
Yeah.
maybe, who knows? I don't know.
Interesting. Well, the reason go ahead.
Okay. But there's the whole thing of what I said in that post, and probably what you were leading towards is,
Yeah.
you get really attached to little things. Like there's some beautiful little things that are happening that I don't want to see go, but what am I going to do? You know, and I really think a lot of time, and this happens in workshops, people try to paint around something they like. It never works. Sometimes you got to cover what you love, or somehow change what you love. And then suddenly what happens is an unexpected, amazing thing happens. Like way better. Now, not always. Sometimes you're like, I wish I hadn't done that.
Mm-hmm.
But this unexpected thing that you've gone further in your work. You've gone deeper. You're trying something, and I'm going to do something. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. It could be kind of a failure, but I'm betting on it. I'm betting on it. Not that I know what's going to happen, but that I know there's going to be a surprise that could be very bountiful. Like, so that's what I'm betting on right now.
That's a beautiful way of living, right? Like we get stuck in our way because it's working, but we might not totally be all that happy. And we have like something else, like you in the beginning, you said you were doing this other work and you know, that work and this other thing of making it as an artist. You didn't think you could do it, but you did. It was like you were painting over your life in a way with a new color.
Right. But actually then, yeah, it's a great metaphor, but then actually still utilizing things like all the things I learned in commercial art. Like
Right.
I'm one of the first artists to use Photoshop ever. I was a beta tester for Adobe. And so I was one of the first illustrators. So I think of things in terms of Photoshop and layers. So it's kind of the way I paint.
Interesting.
And working with color all those years, like it definitely is like a foundation for what I'm doing now. So you don't paint over it. You try new things that can work with it. That's kind of the thing.
Well, I'm glad that we're talking about this because I want to go to the next level with my art, whatever that means. I just want to be a little bit uncomfortable and try things I haven't before. And I'm very inspired by a lot of different art that has nothing to do with the kind of work that I make, but it is really helping me not stay in a tunnel, my own little tunnel.
Right.
And yet, and Catherine's helping me with this, but I notice myself hesitating for a long time
Long
and
time. Yeah.
all the time.
But that's okay. And then it
Is it?
happens.
Will it?
Yeah. And then
Will
it
it
happens and
happen?
you're like, well, that wasn't too bad. Why did it take so long?
She said, just make a small one. I'm like, I want it to be large. Like, I don't,
Do the large, go.
I'm
Yeah.
doing it.
Do the thing you want to do. Yeah, totally.
I'm doing it now. I'm doing a practice. I told myself this isn't real. You get to like mess this up so that I feel a little bit more free in the activity of learning if this will work or not.
And is it more of a technical challenge or a psychological challenge?
Both. I mean,
Both.
I'm taking some old work and reimagining it, and I posted a bit of it today actually.
Oh,
But I
those are
am
beautiful. Yeah.
the butterfly that's kind of,
Yeah.
it doesn't match up, and that wasn't necessarily the plan, but it fits so well about what's happening in my life currently, about things not matching up, but like it's more interesting to look at. And I think, well, that is actually what I want. I want to explore. I was having a very hard time with the metaphor of a butterfly, and everybody's like, "We love your butterflies." I'm like, "I can't with the butterfly." Like I went to fine art school, and it's just not. I have to like unravel myself from the
Yeah, but if
construct
you can
of.
do a butterfly, you can make that
That's what Catherine
edgy
said.
and good, then you can do anything.
So I'm reimagining this butterfly business and my resistance against it, and also what is that? But
Right.
and also with life comes these layers that don't seem like they fit with each other, but they make for a more interesting experience of living.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like, even you were asking me about what do I do right now about this big decision when I'm
Yeah.
foggy, and you're saying, when am I going to do this thing? I think the waiting is okay. It's building up. It's not quite time. And then when it is time, it will be time. You're
Yeah.
definitely thinking about it. You talk about it every
A
time
lot.
I talk to you.
A lot. Yeah. And I got into the printing of it the other day, so I'm halfway there. At least
I mean, also you work through things like maybe you've got something in your mind that isn't exactly what you want to do, and you're realizing, who knows? There could be so many reasons, and it could be personal too, which is great, because then what happens is you're bringing all these emotions along with you, and you think it's just about why I want to do this new thing in my art, but it's so hard and you don't know why. And when you finally get there, you're going to realize that you have brought your like something internally along with you. So you're like killing two birds with one stone.
Yeah, I remember having this discussion with you around whatever's happening in your art is also happening in your life. And that when I'm up against a resistance in my art, there is something that's real in my life that I'm actually contending with. It's not just about whether I sew on this picture or not.
Right.
It's so much more than just process.
But it gets so interesting. You don't want to dissect it, but the sewing's got something to do with other things too.
Yeah.
You
And
don't
it
want
has
to ruin it by figuring it all out.
no, I don't.
I mean, have you ever done dream work?
Yes.
So I've done, like, back in my S days, I did
Yes.
everything. So I did this really long, intensive, and you think that it means something, and then you go one level deeper and you think it means that, and then you realize there's three more layers.
Totally.
It's not always so obvious, or it is so obvious. Like it's crazy.
And Miguel would say that we make meaning out of everything. We're making it up. We're
Just making it
creating
up.
stories for our minds so it feels more comfortable. Like our
Right.
mind needs to have the stories to feel safe. But maybe it doesn't mean anything.
Right.
Maybe
Right. And maybe there's something that's more expansive if you don't make a story out of something.
right.
Yeah.
Right. The I don't know is a perfectly good answer.
Yeah. See, that's great.
Right.
It
Yeah.
feels good. What
Yeah.
I'm doing, like it's going to happen. Who just,
Yeah. The decision that you have to make.
yeah,
Right. It's going to happen.
it's going to happen.
The sewing's going to happen. And then maybe I'll figure it out. I've heard the idea that your work is a living, breathing. I like to say that the work is a living, breathing thing. My website's a living, breathing thing. It changes all the time. My artwork, years later, I will pull it apart or take it out of the frame and write on it or rip it up or
Right.
something. Like, it's still not complete yet. Like, I'm doing it again with this moth that I photographed 10 chapters ago. And it's now saying something new to me. And I wonder about that with your work too. Do you find that you revisit old work? Like, I know that the one that somebody just asked about was something that you have been, it's just been
It's been
sitting
like
around.
this ongoing, I have lots of ongoing that kind of just sit there for a while. And then I'm not sure what to do. I mean, another thing I want to say is, you know, it's great to sell paintings, but sometimes I miss my paintings. Like,
I was going to ask that because
I have some paintings that are like really, really do it for me. Like, there's a lot in them,
yeah,
a lot of me in them. And I just, sometimes they go quickly and I don't even get to live with them. And I sometimes would love to just sit in front of them, but
mm,
they're off at someone else's house somewhere. Yeah. So you
mine
have to
is
make another one.
right. You have to make another. Mine is around me, and I get attached to my work. And somebody said that I'm not a hoarder except for my artwork. Like, I hold on to it, and I'm not allowing other people the gift of having whatever it is my art is
Right.
meant to do outside of my home.
I mean, I think if there wasn't a financial thing, there would be paintings I would have kept.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or even I can imagine myself if for some reason I won the lottery or somehow made it so big, I would go back and offer to buy them back.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I've heard other people say they just paint and get rid of it. A friend of mine that I went to art school with, he does not get attached. He's just like, what do you
Right.
want? Here, here, here. And I'm the opposite. I have so much work from
Yeah.
college, even downstairs in the garage, that I'm holding on to. It has such meaning for me too. I really relate to that. And then we could get stuck in our lives doing that too, like holding on so tightly to something, you know.
There you go.
It always weaves back and forth, right? Now, I would love to talk to you a little bit about Mallorca because it is coming up.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah, I would love just to hear about this retreat and tell me, what's it about?
Well, a little over a year ago, for some reason, I got on the radar as doing workshops. And I don't really know how that happened. Obviously, the social media somehow,
Yeah.
or maybe word of mouth, people were talking. But I got all these offers to do all these destinations. And remember me telling you I'm a yes person? I just said
Yeah.
yes, 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 yes. So this last year, I've been traveling, like Telluride, Santa Fe, New Orleans. I'm going to San Luis Obispo. I'm going to Spain, and they're all through different organizations that have a facility that then they kind of hold the structure, and then I just come in and teach it. So this is a group called Art Fuel, and they have a lot of great workshops all around the world. And she's based in our building.
Mm.
It's, and so they offered, want to know if I want to do Mallorca, and so I'm going to go
So you're
do
going.
it. A lot of times people will look at a teacher's work and then they think that's what that person's teaching.
Right.
But I don't really feel that way. Like, if you're someone that paints like more representational, it's fine. But also, I just feel like abstract, representational, it's all the same thing.
Interesting.
They're all forms that are relating, you know, and it's about emotions. I just try to be like, one of the things I would say about representational is this idea that you're kind of going in and painting this realistic thing kind of loses energy, as opposed to if you take a part of that and zoom in, we know it's that thing, but kind of that's just about technically stroking off or something. Do you know what I mean? It's just like
Yeah.
technically going to show us how good you are. And there's some appreciation you can have for that. But like the energy that something has, there's a way in which you can balance a painting. There are techniques you can balance a painting. People teach this, and you should learn it so you know how, naturally, like with your photographs, you understand composition It's light and dark moving around. And what happens is everyone goes ahead and does this because they say, oh, you've got to do that. You can't break the rule because you can't do this. But I like to screw with the thing where I throw the balance off.
Mm.
So there's actually tension. And sometimes people don't feel comfortable in front of the painting. And I know why they don't, because it's not balanced. You're like stuck in a corner and you can't get to the other corner, and it's kind of bothering you. But you don't know that as a viewer, maybe.
Right.
But you're like, this painting's kind of making me uneasy. I love that kind of stuff.
I love that you do that on purpose.
But so I try to get people, and when we work, we do multiples, and then we pull them out. And that's a way where you can get these kind of super energetic, a little off balance with some tension. And then we go backwards and talk technically, why is that happening? But I don't like to teach from a technical place. I like to go from an emotional first and then bring in technical second.
Interesting.
Why you're
I
doing
love this. I love the idea of the working in multiples and then pulling it apart and then seeing what happens that you did not have any idea existed yet
But
until
then you have
pulled
to
it
convince
apart.
the person. It's hard. You got to convince the artist that's doing it, because they don't see it as they controlled it enough. Like, oh, I didn't do that. That's an accident. And I go, that's perfectly fine. You're a partner in this accident. You know, you're part of that accident. And that's what connecting a conduit is. You're doing something and a higher force is doing something.
Yes.
And maybe that's what I'm saying about representational sometimes. You're trying to show the control of a human,
Mm-hmm.
and it maybe sometimes isn't connected as much with the
With what
what's
wants to
coming
come.
from the other thing. And a lot of times that's like the nature and the order, the chaos of nature, how beautiful it is.
I
And to
love
sort
that.
of, you know, just be a part of it. Look, if you can just, I also talk about just developing your eye. You don't even have to think of yourself as a good artist, but if you're have a good eye, you can always find work that you've done that's good, but you need to be able to identify it. And so that's what we do a lot too. It's like, let's identify, and at least we're going to talk about why this piece works. You don't have to like it because you're the artist. I don't want to convince you that that's what you need to like, but at least understand why everyone seems to like it.
Mm.
That's one of the hardest things, get people to like their own work.
Yeah.
Because if you can be super positive about looking at your own work, you're going to start appreciating it more. And suddenly you'll realize there's more good things happening than you realized.
Yes. And I think that we do that. We're sort of taught to talk down to ourselves all the time about what
Right,
we're
found
not.
all the crap.
Yeah.
Well, also in the workshop, I mean, we're talking about workshops so much. I mean, everywhere, like when you're
Right.
working, you know, I show stuff at a show and I go, this is my work. And they go, oh, you're so good. It's great. And they go like, they don't see all the shit in my studio.
Right.
And that's why these workshops are a little vulnerable, because we get a group together and we're seeing everybody's shit and their good things. But I try to tell them that you're as good as your best piece. That's how good you are. Don't judge yourself by the other 9 that aren't good. You're as good as that one great piece. And just keep identifying the really good ones. And pretty soon you start building up, you know, an archive of good work.
That's beautiful. I love that. I love that you're helping people see in so many ways. It's layered what you're trying to offer people in these
Well,
workshops.
I was someone, when I did workshops, I would, when it was time to go home, because we knew everybody would come in the morning, I'd take all my crappy work and put it under the table and put my 2 good ones on top. Like, come on. It's just like,
I don't like being new. I don't want to be seen being green. I don't like it.
yeah.
So going to a workshop is intimidating, especially in an area of art that I've not done. You know.
Yeah. But then it can be great. What it
Yeah.
leads to.
Then
Yeah.
there's like I have no preconceived idea of what's possible for myself, which is great, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I'm glad that we got a chance to talk even longer. I feel like we could talk.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? See, this is like, you know how when you go to a cocktail party or something and all the artists start talking and their significant others are like, what are they going on and on about?
Yeah,
Like, because we could just talk
I
forever.
know.
And we
I
haven't even
know.
started talking about techniques. That's when you really, or certain supplies and things, and
I know. Well,
then you go on forever.
one thing I really like that you shared about that, when you're as a photographer, there's so much talk about the lens you use and the camera you're using and the sunset that you got perfectly because you have that lens that nobody else has. And I'm like, who cares? Like that to me means nothing. I want to know what you're feeling. And I love that you have the same sort of interest, which is to get to the emotion of where you're at and paint from there.
Well, that's like you're talking about your photographs where it's a slow exposure, so
Yeah.
it feels like there's almost like it's almost like ghost images of
Yes.
emotional stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's so much better than like, photoshopping and making the perfect
Yeah. We've already
thing.
seen that. I want to see what I can't see with my eye. And so I leave the shutter open so that the film is showing me what it can see that I would never be able to see.
Right,
And
right,
I'm fascinated with what lives in those spaces. There's so much that we can't see. We're seeing like
right.
this much of the spectrum of light. We're seeing a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of what's actually available to us. That's fascinating to me. And we feel it when we walk in a room. We feel something's off. We feel when there's something in my son's bedroom. I don't know what it is, but we just don't go in there. Like it's just
Right.
we know that there's a something. How do we know that? What is that? What is the energy? And also, what is the energy between two people that we can feel, but we can't quite put our finger on it? We can't see it, but there's
Right.
just so much available. Just like when you get back to your painting and you're just available to do the thing that you're not trying to control the outcome. You're getting into this space in between the words or the space between trying to control. That is where everything lives, right? I feel like you're doing the same thing.
That's everything. Like I think I have been really conscious of personal growth, but this is the most powerful experience I've had of the purity of opening. And I wish I had known that sooner because I could save a lot of money.
Well, I just love your work and I love the background right now is just stunning and it's just a part of a bigger piece. It's just
Oh, the big blue one?
yeah, the big blue piece.
What's funny is my gallery didn't want that piece, but I love it.
God, I love it so much.
It's a little darker than what I'm used to, which I like.
Well, I'd love to do another podcast episode just about business of being an artist because a lot of people shy away from that, the pricing and the getting the gallery or finding a gallery and having.
Well, I have a whole, yeah, I have a whole spiel, and I have it only because of coming in as such a naive person. So I've learned it from the ground up, and post-pandemic, the new art world,
Mm-hmm.
well, kind of, because everyone wanted to go back to the old art world. But
Yeah.
so I have my own philosophy, and it's kind of worked. So yeah, I'd love to talk about that.
I think we should put a pin in it and have a whole episode based on business. If you're okay with that, I'd love to have you
I
back
think
on.
that'd be great. And it's just so ironic that I would do something like that because this is what I'm talking about. Like that's the opposite of who
Yeah.
I am. But yet I found a relationship with it from my own way, like because I just interjected a few things, just a few disciplines, or yeah, just a few things that have really integrated well. And I feel like I'm doing it in my own way, and it feels like it's being very successful. So
It's incredible. I just really am inspired by your story and your philosophies of living and the way that you use painting to get to the truth and that you're open and available to bring the truth in from wherever it's coming from and not trying to control the outcome. I mean, as much as you can, and and bringing all of that you've learned to the table and that you're right on time. I think that's really helpful to a lot of us to hear that and that it's working for you in a very short amount of time. That's really inspiring. So,
yeah. And I mean, if there's people out there that are feeling like they're too old to start something, you're not older than me. So
so just do it.
just do it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to
I
chat with me.
appreciate it. I love talking with you.
I love talking with you too. And I'm glad that we put a pin in it and that there's another episode coming up with you know, your philosophy about getting into the business side of being an artist, which is a lot of what we resist, but it's
Right.
important. It's really important to having success as an artist if you're wanting to go that route. So I appreciate you so much. And for those listening, I'm going to put links down below so that you can follow him, learn about his artwork, his retreats, his website, his Instagram, everything that you might want to check out to learn more about Gordon. So
I appreciate
thanks a
it.
lot for being here, and we'll see you again next time. Ciao for now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Into the Deep with Catherine Just. You can check out all other episodes and help support the podcast over on catherinejust.com/podcast. Be sure to subscribe, rate, comment, and review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you listen to this podcast. You can share this episode on social media. I look forward to having my voice in your ears next time. Take care.